I'm Dr. John Kruse, and today I'm going to be talking about methylene blue and ADHD. Is this helpful? As usual, I'll start with the take-home message, and the take-home message is methylene blue is a synthetic drug and dye. It's been around for about 150 years. It's used to turn textiles and paper blue. It is considered an essential drug by the World Health Organization. It's effective in treating methemoglobinemia. It's also been used in the past to treat tuberculosis and malaria. And at least in animal subjects and in the laboratory situation, it seems to have strong antioxidation properties. It has monoamine oxidase inhibitor properties. It seems to have anti-inflammatory properties and boost mitochondrial function separate from its antioxidation strategies. There's a small number of studies in bipolar depression and in dementia where it seemed to have some benefit. June of 2025, there is no published study looking at it for ADHD. So although there's some suggestive or encouraging data, it can't be said to have been shown at this point in time to be effective for treating ADHD. So methylene blue, again, was developed in the 1870s as a dye for textiles and for paper. Shortly after that, biologists started using it as a dye in microscope slides for dyeing biological specimens. And from its ability to bind to certain membranes, they had the suggestion that it might be an effective antibiotic. And when they experimented in living organisms, it's a good antibiotic for a wide variety of killing microorganisms. So for decades, it was a standard treatment for malaria. It's also a standard treatment for treating tuberculosis, and it's actually considered by many as the first fully synthetic drug for treating any condition. So most of our drugs up until that time were either plant products or animal products or slightly modified versions of plant or animal molecules. It's actually still used to this day as an antibiotic. I mean, there's some strains of malaria and tuberculosis which are tolerant to it, and there's other reasons it's not used there, but it is a standard treatment for aquarium hobbyists who treat ick, which is a bacterial infection in fish. And when the FDA started in 1938, it grandfathered in a number of drugs, including methylene blue, because they had been used extensively. They were considered safe enough, but methylene blue did not undergo the extensive testing that an FDA-approved drug would require in the decades, almost centuries since 1938. So it has not been vetted as thoroughly at a wide variety of dosages. Part of the interest in methylene blue is it's a molecule that's really good at shuttling electrons back and forth between molecules. The WHO considers it an essential drug. So it is among the drugs that this is the best option for treating a handful of conditions, and it would be essential in a complete modern toolkit of medications. And the condition that methylene blue is good at treating is a condition called methemoglobinemia. This is a condition where usually the iron atom in hemoglobin is what binds to oxygen and helps carry oxygen transported throughout the body and releases oxygen to the tissues, and then binds carbon dioxide, removing waste from the tissues. With methemoglobin, the iron molecule has lost an electron, so it is oxidized, and that forms a form of hemoglobin called methemoglobinemia. The methemoglobin molecule is no longer able to carry oxygen around, so essentially, if you have methemoglobinemia, you suffocate. None of your tissues get oxygen, they die. Different genetic conditions which can contribute to methemoglobinemia. And there's related conditions. It's not exactly methemoglobinemia, but it's also where the iron molecule is oxidized, so it's lost electrons. It can't carry oxygen around the body. So cyanide poisoning is one of those. Carbon monoxide poisoning is another. Methylene blue is a good treatment. Usually it's an IV, large dosage of methylene blue. It can be repeated after a few hours if it's not effective enough. And that big dose of methylene blue donates electrons to the methemoglobin molecule, converting it to hemoglobin, allowing it to bind oxygen again, and bringing oxygen to the tissues. So one of the interesting things here is that if you deliver too big a dose of IV methylene blue, it can actually work the other way. So too big a dose of methylene blue can convert hemoglobin into inactive methemoglobin. So which direction electrons are flowing, electrons don't care. They just go wherever the net charge tells them what direction to go to. So the important message there, though, is dosing of methylene blue is important. You just can't keep going higher and higher and expecting more and more of the same effect. Methylene blue, also starting in the 60s, was found to be a monoamine oxidase inhibitor. So normally when neurotransmitters, dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin, are released in the synaptic cleft, they bind to the receiving cell's receptor, they diffuse on and off. And normally there's an enzyme called monoamine oxidase, which destroys those neurotransmitters, which ends the signal. That and reuptake are the two main mechanisms for ending a signal of these neurotransmitters. A monoamine oxidase inhibitor blocks the monoamine oxidase from working, and that means it's effectively boosting the monoamines. So there are two main types of monoamine oxidase, MAOA and MAOB. Methylene blue is an MAOA inhibitor, which means it's going to boost serotonin, norepinephrine, and dopamine. The B primarily boosts dopamine and phenylethylamine. But again, the boosting of norepinephrine and dopamine, we would expect this should be beneficial for ADHD. But again, there are no formal studies looking at methylene blue in ADHD. There's a few studies looking at it for bipolar depression, all of which looked encouraging. It treated bipolar depression without triggering manic episodes. But those studies were all more than 20 years ago, then nothing replicated more recently. There is a more recent clinical study in dementia. Subjects, they were blind to which dose, but they got one of 3 different dosages of methylene blue over the course of a year on a daily basis. And they looked for improvement, and the group getting the middle dose showed an improvement in some cognitive functions and some changes in brain activity. But interestingly, it was only the middle dose of 138 milligrams, the low dose at 69, and the higher dose at 228 did not show any benefit. Again, this highlights the importance of getting the dosage right when you're treating with methylene blue. And the authors came up with an explanation that at the higher doses, there was competition for absorption, so maybe really less got absorbed. It's not absolutely clear because they weren't measuring blood levels of MAO action or of methylene blue. There are also a few tiny studies looking at methylene blue in terms of brain function in healthy subjects. Study fairly recently, and they only looked at 8 individuals, but there was a statistically significant change in overall energy consumption in the brain. Expectation was that energy consumption would go up, but what they actually found was a statistically significant decrease in energy consumption with methylene blue treatment. Another study looking at 20-odd patients after, I think, 4 weeks of treatment with methylene blue on a daily basis found measures of resting connectivity in different brain regions were altered. And they also found with certain specific tasks that the connectivity in different brain regions. So it's certainly plausible that methylene blue is having positive effects on the brain. Again, it does have monoamine oxidase activity. It is a good reducer of oxidative stress. It also, again, seems to boost mitochondrial function separate from its ability to reduce oxidative stress. It does also seem to have some anti-inflammatory properties. Which of these are most relevant? What dosages are optimal? We don't know. So what are the downsides of methylene blue? So one of the most obvious is this is a blue dye. So it will make your tongue blue. It will make your poop blue. It will make your urine bluish. It will dye your gut blue. It will dye your brain blue. Why those two matter to some people, since most of us don't get to see our guts or our brains while we're alive. Not sure why, but some people are freaked out by that. But more seriously, it can cause serotonin syndrome. So there have been more than 50 cases documented, including one fatality, where most of these were IV administration of methylene blue, so large dose, rapidly administered to treat methemoglobinemia. Presumably the MAO function here is boosting serotonin levels too high. With serotonin syndrome, people have tremors, elevated body temperature, incoherent seizures, and again, death can happen. Most of these were with IV dosing. There has been at least one case documented with just lower oral dosing. The other things to be aware of, taking any other serotonin acting drug, so a serotonin reuptake inhibitor, a tricyclic, antidepressant, our serotonin boosting drugs, so our serotonin and norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors. But there's also non-psychiatric or on the border of psychiatric, so tramadol, which is used for pain, ondansetron, which is used for gastrointestinal problems, dextromethorphan, which is used for excessive coughing and may also be an antidepressant itself. All of these boost the risk of developing serotonin syndrome. So if you're on any of those other drugs, the general recommendation is stay away from methylene blue. And the other important thing to remember with the monoamine oxidase inhibitor like methylene blue is that you actually need to avoid these substances for 2 weeks after your last dose, because that's how long it takes for your body to build up a new supply of active viable monoamine oxidase A. So the other thing that can happen with a monoamine oxidase inhibitor is a tyramine hypertensive crisis. So tyramine is another monoamine. It's not widely used as a neurotransmitter. Whether it's used at all is debatable, but it's a substance that's found particularly in fermented foods like sausages, certain aged cheeses, certain wines. Normally, tyramine is destroyed in the body by monoamine oxidase. But if you have an MAOI, particularly type A MAOI, then tyramine levels can skyrocket and cause blood pressure systolically as high as 180, 190, 220. That isn't just a mild elevation, that's putting people at risk for stroke, other damage, and people have died from tyramine-related monoamine oxidase hypertensive crises. Lowest doses, it's not apparent how strong the MAO action that would cause this tyramine reaction is. And the other thing is that there are some older lists which over-included substances which didn't really contain a lot of tyramine and weren't probably a danger, but in sort of the cover your butt practice of medication, if someone has a bad effect when they're on an MAO inhibitor, then if they had any foods, those might get included in a list, even if subsequent studies showed that food substance is highly unlikely to have contained a high level of tyramine. So why are we talking about this now? And part of this in June of 2025 is back in February, the Health and Human Services Secretary, he was not yet, I think, approved by Congress, but was just about to, Robert Kennedy Jr. was photographed on an airplane dropping an eyedropper full of a blue liquid into a drinking glass of water. And biohackers and others are increasingly using methylene blue, using it for increased longevity, for preserving brain function, for enhancing brain function, for treating cancer. Again, there's a small amount of basic science research supporting it might be useful in these. There's a much more extensive anecdotal claim, but for most of these usages, outside of some antibiotic uses and some treating methemoglobinemia, these are, I would label, purely in the experimental range. And again, the things to be careful are, there are risks to taking methylene blue, not knowing what dosage you're taking, because this is a drug whose behavior does change sometimes dramatically with the dose. And many of the suppliers right now are providing product that's of unclear both in purity and concentration. There are more expensive suppliers who are probably good suppliers. I cannot recommend it at this time. It may turn out in the future that we have good, robust evidence. Fine. I would wait till then for most individuals.